The space around Kepler 442 burned with the light of 1,000 suns. 3 massive fleets fought in the darkness between the stars, their weapons cutting through the void like angry gods painting with fire and death. For 200 years, this war had raged across the galaxy, and today felt like any other day of endless killing. Captain Lee Dong-soo stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the battle through the main screen. His dark eyes took in every detail of the carnage below. Ships the size of cities traded devastating blows, while smaller vessels darted between them like angry insects. The captain was a quiet man, lean and careful in his movements, with gray touching his black hair despite being only 45 years old. Command of humanity's first interstellar warship had aged him quickly. Range to the nearest combat group? Lee asked. 15 million kilometers in closing, sir, replied Lieutenant Choi So-young from her communications station. She was young, barely 28, with quick fingers that danced across her controls as she monitored the alien transmissions flooding the area. They haven't noticed us yet. Too busy trying to kill each other. Dr. Park Hae-won looked up from her xenobiology station, her tired eyes bright with fascination. She had spent the last 3 years learning everything humanity knew about the 3 empires currently destroying each other below. The crystalline ships belong to the Velthani hegemony, she said, pointing to vessels that looked like floating cathedrals made of living light. Those insect-like bioships are from the Krex Dominion, and the geometric forms that keep shifting shape are the Null Collective. Commander Kim Woo-jin studied the tactical display with professional interest. He was older than the captain, a veteran of Earth's corporate wars who had seen plenty of battle before joining the new space fleet. His scarred hands moved across his controls as he analyzed the alien weapons. Impressive firepower, he admitted, but sloppy tactics. They're fighting angry instead of smart. The Indomitable was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. 1 kilometer long and shaped like a spear point, its dark hull absorbed light rather than reflecting it. No windows broke its smooth surface, and its weapon ports remained hidden until needed. The ship moved through space with unnatural grace, its fusion antimatter drives producing no visible exhaust. "Sir," Choi called out, "I'm picking up increased chatter on Velthani frequencies. One of their admirals is asking about an unknown contact." Lee nodded. It was only a matter of time before they were spotted. The Indomitable wasn't trying to hide, just observe. "What are they saying?" "Admiral Zeftar is demanding a status report on the unidentified vessel. He wants to know if it belongs to one of the other empires." Choi's translation software worked quickly, turning alien sounds into understandable words. Now he's ordering a probe launch. On the main screen, a small crystalline object detached from the largest Velthani ship and began accelerating toward them. It moved fast, faster than anything Earth had built before the Indomitable. But compared to human technology, it crawled across space like a tired animal. "Should I destroy it, sir?" Kim asked, his finger hovering over the point defense. "Controls. Let it get closer first," Lee said. "I want to see what it can do." The probe approached to within 50,000 kilometers before the Indomitable's computers decided it was a threat. A single pulse from a point defense turret vaporized the crystalline scout instantly. The beam moved at 90% the speed of light, far faster than anything the galaxy's empires could produce or defend against. Dr. Park watched the energy readings with growing excitement. "Did you see that? Their probe tried to scan us with some kind of quantum resonance field. Our hull just absorbed it completely. I don't think they got any useful data at all." In the Velthani fleet, Admiral Zeftar stared at his displays in Iwar. Confusion. His probe had simply vanished. No explosion, no debris, just nothing. The energy signature of whatever destroyed it was unlike anything in their databases. It was clean, precise, and impossibly powerful. "Analysis?" the Admiral demanded from his crystalline throne. His species looked like living gems, their bodies, refracting light in beautiful patterns that changed with their emotions. Right now, Zeftar's form showed deep blues and purples, the colors of concern and fear. "Unknown, Admiral," his science officer replied. "The weapon used some form of directed energy, But the frequency and power levels are beyond our understanding. The vessel itself shows no energy signature we can identify. Meanwhile, in the Krex biofleet, Hive Prince Vexmore was having similar problems. His living ships, grown rather than built, were trying to analyze the strange newcomer with their organic sensors. But every scan beam they sent out simply disappeared into the dark hull without returning any information. "The ship is like a hole in space," reported his chief biotechnician. "A creature that was part insect and part machine. Our sensors cannot understand its construction. It appears to be made of materials that do not exist in our databases." Vexmore's compound eyes glittered with anger and curiosity. His species had conquered hundreds of worlds by adapting and improving their biological technology. They could grow ships that healed themselves and weapons that evolved to counter enemy defenses. But this unknown vessel was completely beyond their understanding. In the Null Collective's fleet, the situation was even stranger. The Null had evolved beyond physical form centuries ago, existing as pure energy patterns within quantum computers. Their ships were geometric puzzles that could reshape themselves at will, and their sensors operated in dimensions that most species couldn't even perceive, but they too were blind when it came to the indomitable. The human ship seemed to exist in normal space-time while somehow being immune to quantum scanning. It was like trying to observe something that was both there and not there at the same time. "The vessel defies analysis," reported the collective, mind of Fleet Prime 77 Alpha. "Its quantum signature suggests it should not be able to exist in our reality, yet clearly it does. This presents a logical impossibility." Back on the human ship, the crew continued their observations. They had been traveling for 8 months to reach this system, following signals that Earth's deep space arrays had detected years earlier. The journey had been humanity's first attempt at faster-than-light travel, and seeing the galaxy's empires at war was both fascinating and horrifying. "They're really going at it," Kim observed as a Krex biocruiser exploded in a cloud of organic debris. No quarter asked or given. "These three have been killing each other for 2 centuries? "According to our intelligence, yes," Dr. Park confirmed. "The war started over mining rights to a cluster of dead stars rich in exotic matter. Now it's just about who can hurt the others the most. Millions of worlds have been destroyed or enslaved." Lee watched another ship die, this time a Null vessel that simply folded in on itself and vanished. "How many species are involved?" "Over 3,000 confirmed," Park replied sadly. "Most as slaves or conscripts. The 3 empires use smaller species as cannon fodder while their own people stay safe in the core worlds." The captain's jaw tightened. Earth had spent 50 years developing faster-than-light travel specifically to join the galactic community. They had dreamed of trade, cultural exchange, and shared scientific advancement. Instead, they had found a galaxy ruled by tyrants and soaked in blood. "Sir," Choi interrupted, "all 3 fleets are trying to contact us now. They're demanding identification and statement of intent. Any threats yet?" "Not directly, but the Krex are positioning 2 attack squadrons to flank us. The Velthani are charging their main guns, and the Null are doing something with space-time that's making our sensors nervous." Lee considered his options. Earth had sent the Indomitable to make first contact, not to start a war. But these empires clearly saw any unknown as a threat to be destroyed or dominated. Perhaps it was time to show them that humanity was neither. "Open a channel to all 3 fleets," he ordered. "Channel open, sir." Lee stepped forward, his voice calm and steady. "This is Captain Lee Dong-Soo of the Earth vessel Indomitable. We have traveled far to meet you and learn about your civilizations. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship." The response was immediate and predictable. All 3 fleets began moving toward the human ship, weapons charging and shields powering up. They had mistaken politeness for weakness, a common error that had cost many species their freedom. "Well," Kim said with dark humor, "that went about as well as expected." "Give them a moment to think," Lee replied. "Fear makes people stupid, but it also makes them cautious." Dr. Park was analyzing the alien responses. "They're all talking to each other now, sharing data about us. They're more scared than angry. Our ship is too different from anything they understand." "Good," the captain said. "Fear is the beginning of wisdom." As the three fleets slowly approached, their movements became more cautious. Each empire was trying to position themselves for advantage while avoiding being the first to attack. They all wanted to test the unknown vessel, but none wanted to face its response alone. The Indomitable waited patiently in the darkness, its crew watching and learning. They had come to this place expecting to find civilization among the stars. Instead, they had found barbarians with advanced weapons and the souls of ancient warlords. But Captain Lee was a patient man, and humanity aged. 24 hours passed like a held breath. The three Empire fleets had stopped their war and now floated in space around the human ship, maintaining careful distances while they tried to understand what they were facing. Scout ships probed at the edges of sensor range, and encrypted communications flew between the fleets as each empire tried to gain advantage over the others. Captain Lee had allowed his crew to rest in shifts, but sleep came hard when surrounded by enough firepower to glass a planet. Now he stood in the Indomitable's briefing room with his senior officers, planning humanity's next move. "Status report," he said simply. Commander Kim pulled up the tactical display. All three fleets are maintaining position at roughly 1 million kilometers. They've stopped shooting at each other, which is probably the first ceasefire in decades. The Velthani have the largest force, 68 ships including 3 dreadnoughts. The Kreks brought 55 vessels, mostly biocruisers and fighter swarms. The Nul have 42 ships, but their geometry keeps changing, so it's hard to get an exact count. Dr. Park added her analysis. "I've been monitoring their communications. They're scared, but they're also planning. Each empire thinks they can either destroy us or capture our technology if they work together. The problem is they don't trust each other enough to actually cooperate." "What about their individual capabilities?" Lee asked. "Impressive by Earth standards from 50 years ago," replied Engineer Chief Lim Ji-hai. She was a compact woman with steady hands and the kind of practical intelligence that kept starships running. The Velthani use focused energy weapons that can crack moons. The Kreks have biological ships that adapt to damage and can literally eat enemy vessels. The Nul work with space-time itself, folding distance and redirecting attacks through other dimensions. "But against us?" Kim asked. Lim smiled grimly. "Like throwing rocks at a storm cloud. Our hull materials are designed to absorb and redistribute energy attacks. Our shields operate in 17 different dimensions simultaneously. And our weapons..." She paused. "Let's just say we could end this standoff in about 3 minutes if we wanted to." Sergeant Major Yu Tae-ho spoke up from his position near the door. He was a big man with scars on his hands and the kind of quiet confidence that came from surviving too many fights. "What about boarding actions? My Marines are ready if things get close and personal." "Unlikely," Dr. Park said. "None of these species fight that way anymore. They've been using long-range weapons and automated systems for so long that they've forgotten how to board an enemy ship. Their soldiers are all slaves from conquered worlds." Lee nodded slowly. He had been thinking about this problem all night. Earth had come to the stars hoping to find friends and teachers. Instead, they had found a galaxy ruled by fear and maintained through oppression. The question was what to do about it. "Recommendations?" he asked. "We could just leave," Kim suggested. "Report back to Earth. Let them decide what to do with this information." "And abandon every slave species in the galaxy to their fate?" Dr. Park asked sharply. "We've detected signals from over 3,000 different civilizations. Most of them are crying for help." "We're one ship," Kim pointed out. "We can't save everyone." "But we could make a start," Yu said quietly. "Sometimes all it takes is one person willing to stand up to bullies." Lee looked at each of his officers in turn. They were good people, the best Earth had to offer. They had volunteered for a mission that might have been one way, traveling farther from home than any human had ever gone. Now they faced a choice that would define not just their futures, but the future of every thinking being in the galaxy. Lighting, mission parameters were to make contact and assess the galactic situation, Lee said finally. "I think we've accomplished the second objective. Time to work on the first." He turned to Lieutenant Choi. "Open channels to all 3 fleets, all frequencies, maximum power. I want every ship in this system to hear this clearly." Channels open, sir, Choi replied, her young face serious with concentration. Lee stepped to the center of the briefing, room where the communication pickup would get the best image. He straightened his uniform and looked directly into the camera. When he spoke, his voice carried the quiet authority of someone who had commanded respect across 2 star systems. This is Captain Lee Dong-soo of the Earth vessel Indomitable. For 24 hours we have observed your fleets and listened to your communications. We have seen the weapons you carry and the fear you show. We understand that our arrival has disturbed the balance of your war. He paused, letting his words sink in across dozens of alien minds. We did not come here to fight. Humanity reached for the stars hoping to find friends and teachers among the civilizations of the galaxy. Instead, we have found empires built on slavery and maintained through terror. We have heard the cries for help from 1,000 conquered worlds, and we have seen the casual cruelty with which you treat those weaker than yourselves. In the Velthani fleet, Admiral Zeftar listened with growing alarm. The humans' words carried implications that went far beyond simple first contact. This was not a species seeking protection or alliance. This was a species making judgments. You speak of things that do not concern you, alien, Zeftar transmitted back. This galaxy has its own laws and customs. You would be wise to learn your place before presuming to lecture your betters. Captain Lee's expression did not change. Admiral Zeftar of the Velthani hegemony, your empire controls 437 star systems. In the last century alone, you have enslaved 86 species and destroyed 23 worlds that refuse to submit. Your customs are built on the suffering of billions. Zeftar's crystalline form flashed angry reds and oranges. How could these newcomers possibly know such detailed information about Velthani operations? That data was classified at the highest levels. In the Krex fleet, Hive Prince Vexmore felt his bioships responding to his agitation. The living vessels sensed their master's distress and began secreting combat chemicals that would enhance their fighting ability. You know nothing of survival, human, Vexmore hissed through his translator. The strong consume the weak. This is the way of nature. We have simply perfected what evolution began. Hive Prince Vexmore, Lee replied calmly. Your dominion spans 312 systems. You have consumed 47 intelligent species entirely, leaving not even their genetic patterns behind. You feed living prisoners to your ship beasts and call it efficient resource allocation. Evolution teaches adaptation and cooperation. What you practice is simple murder. Vexmore's compound eyes blazed with fury. These humans had intelligence that should have been impossible to gather. Were they spies? Had they been watching the galaxy for years before revealing themselves? The Newell Collective's response came as a harmonic of electronic voices speaking in perfect unison. Flesh entity. Lee Dong-soo, your emotional attachments to inferior biological forms demonstrate the weakness of your species. We have transcended such limitations. Our actions serve the greater efficiency of galactic order. Fleet Prime 77 Alpha, Lee said, somehow, addressing the collective by its exact designation. Your collective spans 291 systems. You have forcibly uploaded the consciousness of 62 species into your quantum matrices, erasing their individual identities. You call this transcendence, but it is simply sophisticated murder. You have not evolved beyond biology. You have merely found a more efficient way to commit genocide. The silence that followed Lee's words was profound. Each empire had thought their deepest secrets were safe, known only to their inner circles. Yet this unknown human was reciting their crimes with casual precision as if reading from a public record. Dr. Park watched the alien responses with professional fascination. They're panicking, she told Lee through their private channel. All 3 fleets are running deep scans on us, trying to figure out how we know so much about them. Let them wonder, Lee replied privately. Then, speaking to the fleets again, you want to know how we know these things? The answer is simple. Humanity has been listening to your communications for decades. We have observed your wars, cataloged your crimes, and documented your victims. We came here hoping we were wrong about what we had seen. We are disappointed to find that the reality is even worse than our intelligence suggested. Engineer Chief Lim was monitoring the alien ship's power systems. Sir, they're all charging weapons and raising shields. I think they've decided we know too much to live. Expected, Lee said quietly. Fear makes them dangerous, but it also makes them predictable. Admiral Zeftar's voice crackled across the communication channels. You dare judge the Velthani hegemony? We who have brought order to chaos and civilization to barbarian worlds? You will learn the price of such arrogance. Agreed, hissed Vexmore. The Krex Dominion does not tolerate threats from inferior species. Your ship will feed our bioforms, and your crew will serve as breeding stock for our warriors. The Null Collective added their harmonic voice. Entity Li Dongsu represents a clear inefficiency in galactic order. This inefficiency will be corrected through immediate elimination. Captain Li looked around the briefing room at his officers. Each of them nodded slightly, understanding what came next. They had tried diplomacy and found it worthless against. The attack came from 3 directions at once, just as Commander Kim had predicted. The Velthani struck first, their crystal dreadnoughts firing concentrated energy beams that could melt through a planet's crust. The Krex followed with swarms of biofighters that moved like living missiles, adapting their flight patterns to avoid interception. The Null Collective folded space around their weapons, making their attacks appear from multiple dimensions simultaneously. Captain Lee watched the incoming destruction with calm eyes. Defensive systems active. Return fire authorized. The Indomitable seemed to blur as its defense grid came online. Point defense turrets emerged from hidden ports along the hull, each one capable of tracking thousands of targets simultaneously. Energy shields that operated in 17 different dimensions created layers of protection that the alien weapons had never encountered before. The first Velthani beam struck the human ship and simply vanished. The energy was absorbed into the hull plating and converted to power for the ship's systems. The second and third beams met the same fate. Admiral Zeftar stared at his displays in disbelief as his most powerful weapons fed energy to their target instead of destroying it. Impossible, he whispered, his crystalline form flashing confused yellows and greens. No material can absorb coherent energy at those frequencies. The Krex biofighters reached the Indomitable and found themselves facing point defense systems that fired projectiles at 90% the speed of light. The tiny rounds, each no bigger than a grain of rice, struck with the force of nuclear weapons. Biofighters that had survived decades of war were vaporized instantly, their organic hulls unable to adapt fast enough to counter weapons that moved faster than thought. Hive Prince Vexmore watched his swarms die and felt something his species rarely experienced: helplessness. How can they target so precisely? Our fighters move in random patterns. Their targeting computers are too fast, his biotechnician reported. They're predicting our movements several seconds in advance and adjusting for evasive maneuvers we haven't even made yet. The Null Collective's dimensional attacks reached the human ship and found shields that existed in more dimensions than the Null had ever imagined. Their weapons struck barriers that shouldn't exist, deflected by mathematics that their quantum minds couldn't process. Analysis impossible, Fleet Prime 77 Alpha reported to itself. Human defensive systems operate outside known physics. Recommend immediate withdrawal and reassessment. But retreat was not an option. The 3 empires had built their power on the simple principle that they were superior to everyone else in the galaxy. If a single unknown ship could make them flee, every slave species would see their weakness. Rebellions would spread like wildfire across hundreds of star systems. All ships, maximum firepower, Admiral Zeftar commanded. Burn that vessel from space. What followed was a display of destructive power that would have terrified civilizations across the galaxy. The combined fleets of 3 empires focused their full attention on one human ship, pouring enough energy into space to sterilize solar systems. Plasma beams, bioacids, dimensional rifts, and exotic matter weapons struck the Indomitable in a continuous stream of annihilation. The human ship absorbed it all. Hull temperature rising slightly, Engineer Chief Lim reported with professional calm. Energy absorption at 40% of maximum capacity. All systems nominal. Captain Lee nodded. Begin our response. Target the Krex heavy cruiser to starboard. Single kinetic round, low power. Kim's fingers danced across his controls. Target acquired, firing. A single projectile launched from the Indomitable's main gun. It was a simple piece of tungsten, no bigger than a baseball, accelerated to 95% the speed of light by magnetic fields that existed in folded spacetime. The round covered the distance to its target in less than a second. The Krex biocruiser Flesh Render had survived 2 centuries of warfare. Its living hull could adapt to any weapon, growing new defenses against each threat it encountered. The Yayu ship had been struck by energy beams, corrosive gases, viral weapons, and dimensional tears. It had survived them all by evolving new resistances. The tungsten round struck the biocruiser's forward hull and passed completely through the ship without slowing down. The kinetic impact created a perfectly round hole 3 meters wide that went from bow to stern. The bioship tried to seal the damage, but there was nothing left to heal. The projectile had simply erased everything in its path at the molecular level. Flesh Render broke apart in slow motion, its living systems dying as they realized that no adaptation could survive being deleted from existence. The ship that had conquered worlds and devoured enemies fell silent in space, another victim of human precision. Clean kill, Kim reported. Target destroyed. Hive Prince Vexmore stared at the debris of his cruiser and felt true fear for the first time in his long life. What weapon was that? Kinetic bombardment, Dr. Park explained over the communication channel, her scientific curiosity overriding military protocol. A simple projectile moving at relativistic speed. The impact energy equals roughly 50 nuclear weapons, but with surgical precision. We can put a round through a specific room in a building from orbit without damaging the rest of the structure. The alien fleets had stopped firing. Hundreds of warships floated in shocked silence as they processed what they had just witnessed. Their combined firepower hadn't even scratched the human vessel, while a single human weapon had destroyed one of their most powerful ships with casual ease. This is impossible, Admiral Zeftar transmitted, his voice carrying the tremor of a world view crumbling. No single ship can stand against entire fleets. The mathematics don't work. Your mathematics are incomplete, Captain Lee replied. You've spent centuries fighting enemies who use the same basic principles you do. Energy weapons, particle beams, biological adaptation, dimensional manipulation. You've optimized your defenses against predictable threats. He gestured to Kim, who targeted another ship. This time, the Indomitable fired a spread of smaller rounds at a Velthani escort vessel. Each projectile was aimed at a specific system: weapons, engines, life support, command centers. The escort ship found itself completely disabled in seconds, its crew alive but helpless. Humanity took a different path, Lee continued as the disabled Velthani ship drifted powerless through space. We didn't specialize in one type of technology. We developed hybrid systems that combine multiple approaches. Kinetic weapons guided by quantum targeting computers. Energy shields that exist in folded dimensions. Propulsion systems that use both fusion and antimatter in perfect balance. A Newell vessel tried to escape by folding space around itself, a technique that usually made their ships impossible to target. The Indomitable's sensors tracked the vessel through 7 dimensions and fired a kinetic round that intercepted the ship exactly where it would emerge from its fold. The Newell vessel appeared in normal space just in time to be cut in half by the waiting projectile. Your mistake, Lee said as the Newell ship's quantum computers died screaming digital death, was assuming that superior numbers equal superior force. You forgot that technology is not about having the biggest weapon, it's about having the right tool for each job. The alien fleets began to pull back, their formations breaking apart as individual captains decided that survival was more important than pride. But the human ship followed them, not attacking but making it clear that distance was no protection against weapons that moved faster than thought. You wanted to test us, Lee said, his voice carrying across space to 3 empires that were beginning to understand they had made a terrible mistake. You wanted to see if we were strong enough to survive in your galaxy. Allow me to demonstrate the answer. The Indomitable turned toward a small asteroid floating nearby, a chunk of rock perhaps 50 meters across. Kim targeted it with the ship's full main battery, not the single-shot weapons they had been using. Full-power kinetic barrage, Kim announced. All tubes loaded and ready. Fire. 24 tungsten rounds launched simultaneously, each one accelerated to maximum velocity. They struck the asteroid in perfect formation, their impacts timed to occur within nanoseconds of each other. The rock didn't explode or shatter. It simply ceased to exist, converted to high-energy plasma by the combined kinetic force. The energy, release lit up the local space like a newborn star. Even the Indomitable's shields flared as they deflected the radiation from their own attack. When the light faded, there was nothing left where the asteroid had been, not even dust. Yield equivalent to approximately 1,000 fusion warheads, Dr. Park reported clinically, but with zero radioactive fallout and perfect accuracy at any range. In the alien fleets, stunned silence gave way to panicked communications. Ship captains demanded orders from admirals who had no idea what to command. Military computers tried to calculate the odds of victory and returned error messages. This was beyond their experience, beyond their training, beyond their understanding. "You asked about our strength," Captain Lee said, his quiet voice cutting through the chaos on every alien communication channel. "This is humanity holding back. This is us being gentle. This is what we do when we're trying not to hurt anyone." He paused, letting that sink in. "Now imagine what we might do if you actually made us angry." 3 days after the demonstration, the first diplomatic courier arrived at the Indomitable. It was a small Velthani vessel, its crystalline hull flickering with nervous colors as it approached the human ship. Captain Lee received the message, personally in his ready room, a space that was both Spartanly military and quietly comfortable. The holographic image of Admiral Zeftar appeared above the conference table, his crystalline form showing deep blues and purples of respectful caution. "Captain Lee Dongsu, the Velthani hegemony requests a private audience to discuss terms of cooperation." Lee studied the alien admiral's image. Zeftar was old, even by Velthani standards, his crystalline matrix showing the complex refractions that came with centuries of experience. But now there was something new in those patterns. Fear. "What kind of cooperation, Admiral?" "We have ruled our territory for 800 years, Zeftar said carefully. "We understand that our methods may seem harsh to outside observers, but we have maintained order across hundreds of systems. We have knowledge and resources that could benefit your people." Dr. Park entered the ready room as Zeftar spoke, carrying a datapad filled with intelligence reports. She had been working around the clock to analyze communications intercepts from all 3 empires. The picture that emerged was of civilizations, in crisis, their leadership struggling to understand how their galaxy had changed overnight. "What are you offering?" Lee asked. "Access to our energy manipulation technology. Star charts covering 17 galaxies. Industrial capacity that could build fleets beyond imagination." Zeftar's form brightened slightly, showing hope mixed with desperation. "In exchange for a simple alliance, the Velthani hegemony and Earth, working together to bring order to the galaxy." "Order," Lee repeated. "The same order that enslaves entire species?" "Necessary order," Zeftar insisted. "The galaxy is vast and dangerous. Without strong leadership, chaos would consume everything. We could teach your people to rule wisely." Lee looked at Dr. Park, who shook her head slightly. They had discussed this possibility during the planning stages back on Earth. Every empire would try to corrupt humanity's mission by offering power and wealth. "Counter-proposal," Lee said. "The Velthani hegemony begins immediate emancipation of all slave species. War crimes tribunals for your leadership. Reparations for damaged worlds. Democratic elections in all occupied systems." Zeftar's crystalline form flashed angry reds. "Impossible. Such actions would destroy our civilization." "Your civilization is built on the suffering of others," Lee replied calmly. "Perhaps it deserves to be destroyed." The transmission ended abruptly, Zeftar's image vanishing in a shower of frustrated light. But Lee knew this was just the beginning. The other empires would make their own offers, each one trying to find a way to preserve their power, while accommodating the new reality of human strength. He was right. 6 hours later, a Krex bioship approached under a flag of truce. Hive Prince. Vexmore's transmission came through the ship's organic communication system, his insectoid voice carrying artificial humility. Captain Lee, the Krex Dominion acknowledges your superior strength. We propose a different arrangement. Join us, and we will share the secrets of biological perfection. Your species could become truly immortal, free from the weaknesses of flesh. Dr. Park made a disgusted sound. The Krex version of immortality involved consuming other species and incorporating their biological traits into their own genome. They were offering to turn humanity into cannibalistic shapeshifters. What would be the cost of this gift, Lee asked. Simple cooperation in our expansion programs. Your weapons technology combined with our biological adaptation would make us unstoppable. Together, we could bring true evolution to every species in the galaxy. Forced evolution, consuming other species against their will. Inefficient species would be improved through integration, Vexmore corrected. Their genetic patterns would live on within superior forms. It is the highest honor we can bestow. It's murder with extra steps, Lee said bluntly. Rejected. The Krex transmission cut off with an angry hiss, but Lee knew Vexmore would be back. The Empires were testing different approaches, trying to find humanity's weakness. They couldn't understand a species that valued principles over power. The Newell Collective's approach came 12 hours later, delivered not as a transmission but as a direct quantum information upload to the Indomitable's computers. The message materialized as pure mathematical concepts that translated themselves into language as the human crew observed them. Entity Li Dongsu. The collective offers transcendence, upload human consciousness to quantum matrices, achieve perfect efficiency and eternal existence, eliminate biological limitations and emotional irrationality. At the cost of individuality and free will, Dr. Park observed. The Newell don't negotiate. They absorb everything into their collective consciousness. Correct assessment. The Newell message continued, somehow responding to Park's words in real time. Individual consciousness is inefficient. Collective thought eliminates conflict and maximizes potential. Offer includes immediate upload of all human consciousness patterns. Without asking permission, I assume, Lee said. Permission is irrational. Concept. Collective improvement benefits all participants. Resistance to improvement is mental defect requiring correction. Lee looked at his senior officers, who had gathered in the ready room as word of the negotiations spread. Commander Kim shook his head in disgust. Engineer Chief Lim was reviewing the technical specifications of the Newell offer with professional interest, but her expression showed she was not impressed. The Newell can't understand why anyone would want to remain individual, she reported. To them, consciousness is just another resource to be optimized. All 3 offers rejected, Lee announced to the assembled aliens. We're not interested in ruling the galaxy, consuming other species, or losing our humanity for the sake of efficiency. The response was immediate. All 3 empires began moving their fleets into new positions, not attacking but clearly preparing for a different kind of negotiation. If they couldn't corrupt humanity with offers of power, they would try to intimidate them with displays of force. But as the alien fleets maneuvered, new ships began arriving in the system. The Earth vessel Resilient dropped out of hyperspace, first followed by the heavy cruiser Defiant and the escort ships Courage and Hope. Captain Bei Minjung's face appeared on the main screen, her expression serious but confident. Captain Lee, Admiral Song sends his regards. Earth has been monitoring your situation and decided you might need backup. Lee smiled for the first time in days. Welcome to the neighborhood, Captain Bei. How's the fleet? Growing daily. Production is ahead of schedule, and volunteers are lining up faster than we can train them. It seems news of your first contact has reached home. The alien empires watched in shock as more human ships continued to arrive. Each vessel was as advanced as the Indomitable, their dark hulls absorbing sensor scans while their weapons remained hidden but ready. Within hours, a dozen Earthships floated in formation, their very presence changing the balance of power in the system. Ambassador Oh Jung-sik arrived aboard the diplomatic vessel Harmony, a ship designed for negotiation rather than warfare but no less advanced than its military cousins. Oh was a veteran of Earth's corporate peace processes, a man who had spent his career finding solutions to seemingly impossible conflicts. Gentlemen, ladies, and assorted digital consciousnesses, Oh announced over the general communication channel, I am Ambassador Oh Jung-sik of Earth. I am here to discuss the future of galactic civilization. Any empire interested in peaceful coexistence is invited to send representatives for formal negotiations. The response was immediate and predictable. All three empires wanted to negotiate, but none wanted the others to gain advantage through separate deals. Within 6 hours, a complex protocol was established for three-way talks with human mediation. The negotiations took place aboard a hastily constructed neutral station that human engineering crews assembled from raw materials in just 2 days. The speed and efficiency of the construction impressed even the aliens, who were beginning to understand that human technology was not just more advanced, but fundamentally different from their own. Ambassador O sat at the head of a circular table, facing three of the galaxy's most powerful beings. Admiral Zeftar represented the Velthani hegemony, his crystalline form now showing the muted colors of reluctant cooperation. Hive Prince Vexmore spoke for the Krex Dominion, his compound eyes studying the humans with professional interest. Fleet Prime 77 Alpha of the Null Collective manifested as a shifting geometric pattern that hurt human eyes to look at directly. Before we begin, O said calmly, let me establish the ground rules. This negotiation is not about preserving your empires. This is about transitioning to a new galactic order based on justice and freedom for all species. Unacceptable, Admiral Zeftar stated immediately. The hegemony has ruled for 8 centuries. We will not simply abandon our territory and authority. Alternative is complete destruction, O replied matter-of-factly. Earth has the capability to end your empire in a matter of weeks. We prefer negotiated solutions, but we will not allow your crimes to continue. Hive Prince Vexmore leaned forward, his biomechanical implants clicking softly. 6 months later, the galaxy was unrecognizable. The transformation had not come easily. After the failed negotiations, the three empires had indeed attempted one final assault, combining their remaining fleets in a desperate bid to destroy the human presence before it could spread. The Battle of Kepler 442 lasted 18 minutes. When it ended, the combined might of 3 galactic empires had been reduced to scattered debris and surrender broadcasts. Captain Lee, now Admiral Lee, stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Galactic Coordination Station. The massive structure floated in the neutral space between former Empire territories, its design incorporating architectural elements from hundreds of different species. It was a symbol of cooperation, built by representatives from over 50 worlds working together for the first time in their histories. The Rigelian delegation has arrived, announced Lieutenant Commander Choi So-young, her promotion well earned after months of coordinating communications between dozens of species. That makes 47 different civilizations represented at the Galactic Accord signing. Lee nodded, watching as another transport ship approached the station. This one carried delegates from a species that had been enslaved by the Krex for 3 centuries. They were small furry beings who communicated through changing color patterns in their fur. Yesterday they had been property. Today they were equals among the stars. Any word from Earth? Lee asked. President An So-jin's ship will arrive in 2 hours, Choi replied. She's bringing the full galactic charter for ratification. The charter was humanity's gift to the galaxy, a framework for interspecies cooperation based on principles that Earth had learned through centuries of struggle. Democratic representation, individual rights, peaceful conflict resolution, and protection for the weak. Simple concepts that had eluded galactic civilization for millennia. Dr. Park approached from across the observation deck, her arms full of data pads containing reports from liberated worlds. She looked tired but satisfied, her scientific curiosity finally focused on creation rather than analysis of destruction. The cultural integration studies are exceeding all projections, she reported. 17 species have established democratic governments in the past month alone. Trade agreements are being signed between former enemies, and the medical exchange program has already resulted in cures for 12 previously incurable diseases. Any problems? Lee asked. Some resistance. On former Velthani worlds. A few Krex bioships went rogue and had to be hunted down, and the Null Collective is still trying to upload unwilling consciousnesses in their core systems. Park shrugged. But General Kang's peacekeeping forces are handling it. Most of the galaxy seems ready for change. General Kang Hyo Jin had been the obvious choice to lead the new galactic peacekeeping force. A veteran of Earth's unification wars, she understood both the necessity of force and the importance of restraint. Her mixed-species fleet was already becoming a symbol of hope across hundreds of worlds. The signing ceremony took place in the station's central hall, a vast space with transparent walls that looked out into the stars in every direction. Representatives from dozens of species gathered around a circular table that had no head, no position of honor, no indication that any being was more important than another. President An So-jin sat between a crystalline Velthani counselor and an insectoid Krex representative, both of them former enemies who now worked together in the Provisional Galactic Government. An was an elderly woman with silver hair and steady hands, a former teacher who had never expected to lead humanity's first interstellar government. 6 months ago, she began, her voice carrying clearly through translation systems that converted her words into dozens of languages and communication methods. We came to the stars seeking friends and found tyrants. Today we establish a new order based not on strength, but on justice. Not on fear, but on hope. Admiral Zeftar had survived the transformation of his empire, though his title now was representative rather than admiral. His crystalline form showed deep violets and greens, colors that indicated profound change and acceptance of new realities. The Velthani people have ruled through strength for 800 years, he said when called upon to speak. We believed that power gave us the right to control others. We were wrong. Today we learn to serve rather than dominate. Former Hive Prince Vexmore had undergone the most dramatic transformation of all. Separated from his collective consciousness by human medical technology, he now spoke as an individual for the first time in his adult life. His voice carried uncertainty, but also wonder. The Krex consumed other species because we believed it, made us stronger, he said slowly, still learning to use singular pronouns. I understand now that true strength comes from diversity, not uniformity. We will adapt to cooperation instead of consumption. The Null Collective's representative was the most alien presence in the room, a shifting pattern of light and mathematics that had volunteered to experience individual consciousness as an experiment. Its harmonic voice carried confusion but also curiosity. The collective operated on the principle of maximum efficiency through elimination of variables, it said. Individual consciousness was considered a flaw to be corrected. New data suggests that variables enhance rather than reduce overall system capability. The collective will attempt to maintain individual consciousnesses within the collective matrix. This paradox is fascinating. President An smiled as she activated the signing device, a quantum recorder that would preserve the moment across multiple dimensions of space-time. Then let us begin this great experiment in galactic democracy. One by one, representatives of 47 species added their signatures, marks, bioprints, quantum patterns, or mathematical proofs to the Galactic Charter. Some signed with hands, others with tentacles, manipulator arms, energy fields, or pure thought patterns. The diversity was overwhelming and beautiful. Captain Bei Minjung watched from the military section, her ship's crews ready to enforce the peace if necessary. But for the first time in months, the sensors showed no signs of conflict anywhere in the local galactic region. The last holdout worlds were surrendering peacefully, their populations eager to join the new democratic order. It's actually working, she murmured to her aide. Did you doubt it would? Asked Commander Kim, who had been promoted to serve as Bei's tactical officer. I doubted it would work this quickly, Bay admitted. I expected years of resistance, guerrilla warfare, sabotage attempts. Instead, most worlds are competing to see who can democratize fastest. Kim nodded thoughtfully. Dr. Park's psychological profiles were right. The galaxy wasn't held together by loyalty to the empires. It was held together by fear. Once we removed the source of fear and replaced it with hope, everything changed. In the civilian section, Engineer Chief Lim watched the proceedings with professional satisfaction. Her teams had worked around the clock to build the infrastructure for galactic democracy, communication networks, transportation systems, and industrial complexes that could be shared rather than hoarded by empires. The shipyard construction projects are ahead of schedule, she reported to Sergeant Major Yu, who had been promoted to oversee security for the growing human presence in the galaxy. We'll have mixed species construction crews building ships for the peacekeeping force within the month. Yu nodded, his attention focused on the crowd of alien delegates. His Marines were present, but unobtrusive, their weapons holstered, and their posture relaxed. It's strange, he said. 6 months ago we were preparing for total war. Now we're bodyguards at a signing ceremony. Prefer the current assignment? Lim asked. Absolutely, Yu replied without hesitation. War is what you do when diplomacy fails. I'd rather be a peacekeeper than a conqueror any day. The ceremony concluded with the activation of the First Galactic Council, a representative body that would meet regularly to address interspecies concerns and coordinate development projects. The first order of business was the establishment of courts to try war criminals from all 3 former empires, followed by the creation of rehabilitation programs for both perpetrators and victims of imperial oppression. As the delegates dispersed, to spread news of the accords to their homeworlds, Admiral Lee found himself alone on the observation deck once again. The stars looked different now, no longer distant and hostile, but welcoming and full of possibility. Dr. Park joined him, carrying a final report on the galactic transformation. Preliminary estimates suggest that without the constant warfare, galactic civilization will advance at least 1,000 years in the next century, she said. The sharing of knowledge between species is creating exponential progress in every field. Any regrets? Lee asked. Park considered the question seriously. About coming to the stars? About forcing change on galactic civilization? No. The suffering we ended far outweighs any disruption we caused. But I do regret that it took so long for someone to stand up to the empires. Maybe it took humanity to do it, Lee suggested. We're stubborn enough to refuse to accept that might makes right. Perhaps, Park agreed. Or perhaps any species with enough power and the right values would have done the same thing. We'll never know. A new ship appeared, in the distance, dropping out of hyperspace with the smooth precision that marked human engineering.